part 3 begins on race day, and after a late night at Volusia, we were late to get to the track again. And when we got there, the Cup cars and the cars of tomorrow were out for final practice before the Bud shootout to come that night. So we piled back into the golf cart and had Mike and Mark from the Sim Factory take us around the track. As much time as we had spent at Daytona, this would be our first chance to get to see the track up close. And that's when it happened. Sitting on turn 3, we finally met a real NASCAR fan. Just get a load of what this guy had to say.
If there's going to be somebody running up there. You know?
I don't know if they're running now, but
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, we got to show them the town and do the good, you know.
You going to take them to Lollipop?
Well, after that great conversation, it was time to head for the infield. We walked right out onto the infield grass right next to the Daytona 500 logo. And we'd be up close and personal as they introduced the drivers.
So sit back, enjoy the race. Thank you for being here. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
It was a great thing watching these drivers get introduced for the first time in '08. And as they came out, we all had our favorites, and the crowd was starting to get pumped up.
Edinburgh, Scotland, Dario Franchitti. Scott Speed. And starting on the pole in the number 65 Voodoo Ride Toyota from Rockland, California, Justin Marks.
So this thing's getting really close to going green. And that's when our next once-in-a-lifetime moment happened. Bob Coulter of the Sim Factory grabbed us and pulled us over pit wall. And that's when we did what I will now refer to as the walk. I'd seen it all my life on TV. It was the moments just before the race when the only people over the wall were the crew chiefs and car owners strapping the drivers in. You had the media guys out there with the cameras, and everybody was in anticipation of starting the race. Oh, and there's Jack Roush, the cat in the hat. Continuing along, the pace started to get frantic. You can see here the Arca Remax official giving the 2-minute warning. Here's a great shot of 9-time Arca champion Frank Kimmel as he gets ready for the race. You can see the concentration in his eyes. And it was right after this that something stopped me dead in my tracks. What an incredible view it was. So we continued the walk, this time going up between the cars. You can see the officials giving the countdown to only 1 minute to go now. I think the best way to describe the excitement that we are feeling is to show you this clip here.
where are you at, Shaun?
We're walking down pit lane right before the start of the Arca Daytona.
Let's get off. We're going to get in trouble.
A minute before they throw us out of here.
I stopped and zoomed in on him and he looked right at me.
So for this race, we camped out at JR Motorsports pits. And here's a good shot of Zippy talking to Dan Denayer's family. And there's JT, Neebs, and Mark Carter. And one more shot of the entire crew as we all prepare for the race. And on the right is Ian Bushing and Bob Coulter of the Sim Factory. And then finally the cars rolled off pit lane. And after what seemed like an eternity, they came around again for their parade lap. And the next time they came by, it was something spectacular. It was for the green flag and the entire field accelerating up to speed.
Green flag flies, we're racing at Daytona.
So after watching some racing from there for a while, we realized that that actually wasn't the best place to watch a race from. So then we headed our way over to the fan zone, and we saw some cool things along the way there too. Here's a great shot of Chip Ganassi and Ashley Judd. When we got to the fan zone, our group pretty much took over. We grabbed a bunch of chairs and tables and just started eating and drinking and watching the race on widescreen TVs. We ended up watching the entire race from the fan zone, and in the end it was Michael Annette who brought home the win in the number 28 Bill Davis ride. Well, we're going to take a small break, and when we return, we'll pick up with the Bud Shootout. Well, by the time all the Arca festivities had ended, it was nighttime. And to kill time between the Arca race and the Bud shootout, we went over to the Daytona Club. If you're really wealthy, it's a great place to go to be able to eat and drink and get away from the big crowds on race days. Not being rich, in our case, it was lucky because Environ and the Sim Factory had an exhibit there for members to be able to use. They even had a television there with our broadcast on PSR TV of a recent Arca race. The club really was something pretty cool. They had amazing lighting and this tent was bigger than life. But we weren't going to be able to hang out here very long because ultimately there was more racing to come tonight. It was back to pit lane for the Bud shootout, and we would camp out in Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s pit stall. Now we were really here for the Arca race this week, but I got to admit, I was really excited to watch the Cup guys go at it for a while. So here's what it was like for the green flag.
It's Michael Walton and Mark Martin alongside. They come to the line to start the Budweiser shootout. Here's Marty. Four cars are single file from there on back. It is double line. Coming off turn number 4 to the line, Mark Martin trying to squeeze the
Here's Junior's crew watching the race on the big screen TV. It is odd watching from pit lane as you just wait for them to come by, and then everybody turns around and watches the race on the big screen. And it's a long way around at Daytona till they come around again. Here's our group watching the race on the big screen TV. And that's exactly why we'd make it back over to the fan zone again to watch the rest of the race. And to top off the perfect weekend, well, you know who won the race.
Earnhardt Jr., the winner of the Budweiser shootout.
So then we made our way over to the NASCAR Cup garages to watch the teams bring in their equipment and their cars back to their garages. And at this point it started to dawn on us that our perfect vacation was starting to come to a rapid end. At this point we're completely exhausted, so we decided to go back to the hotel, hang out at the hotel lobby bar with the guys from the Sim Factory well into the evening. Well, the next day was supposed to be pretty unexciting. We set up to have lunch with the Sim Factory guys before we headed out of town.
SRT here with the Sim Factory.
So one more time, in this shot, on the right, you got Nick Steelman, Bill Zippy Zipperman, Bob Hollywood Coulter, Mike Rohr, and on the left side, Mark Carter. But after saying our goodbyes to our new best friends, it was time to get on the road. So it was back into the SRT HHR and headed for the airport. And what do you know, we got lost again. And when we finally got to the airport, this is what we saw. That's right, we missed our flight home. So we booked a new flight for the next day, drove all the way back to Daytona to hang out with the guys again, this time at the Wing House, a Hooters knockoff. And once again, we were there until they closed the place down. So finally the next day, we got on our plane, we headed back to LA, and our trip was over. This really was a trip of a lifetime. We just can't thank the guys from the Sim Factory enough.